the Fairview and E.S. Brown Heritage Corporation, I bring you greetings because it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 90th anniversary celebration of the Fairview School. Let's give it. For those of you who don't know, it has been a 3-day event, and we have certainly enjoyed these 2 days prior to tonight. And tonight we culminate those 2 days of traditional educational learning that we took in at Berry College. And we end tonight with this celebration, which is the finality of the finality of the night for the weekend. For those of you who don't know, the reason that this particular project is so important from my perspective is that, number one, it represents Northwest Georgia's history, education, and culture. And as a part of the project, some of our goals include preservation of those characteristics of our particular area, because we want to hold those things dear so that in 90 years from now, some kind historian will look back and say, they have followed in the tradition of those people who started the school, Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald, who made this event so wonderful. And tonight with us, we have descendants of that school. They will be introduced later. But tonight what we hope to do is to give you a sense of just what this project is all about, what it means to our community, how as a unified community we can once again restore a place that is so dear in the hearts of the African American community in Cave Spring. So that is forthcoming in speakers later in the program. But if I could tell you in my mind's eye, most of you have probably seen the picture of the school in the paper, and you know it's just covered all in kudzu. And in fact, I think Ms. Robin Banks told me today that she just couldn't understand how anybody could like an old building that's covered in kudzu. But for some reason, that little school has captured the hearts, not just of myself, but of the people who went to school there. And we have done a tremendous amount of work around the community to raise awareness and also to try to raise funds so that we can restore this little place up in Northwest Georgia that we think has a terrific and wonderful story to tell, and that can also be a place for children again. So we're hoping, like I said, that history will be kind to us, and history will look back and they will say, well, there was a community that treasured the African American experience, the educational experience, and took this project on as a whole to make it become a reality. And in my mind's eye, what these people will talk about is the re-envisioning of the school, which our architect will bring forth in more detail. But I see it as not just a school covered in kudzu, but I see it as a wonderful interpretive center where people may go and visit from a tourism perspective, as well as students going back to get a glimpse in time of what it was like to actually attend school back during that period of time. I see it as a place where we will be able to offer that ever-present, very popular STEAM program, where we will be able to augment the educational system and to have students go on a year-round basis to see just the potential that they can grow to be as a part of the process. My mind's eye tells me that it has a community project and that we will see it through and that we will work as a community to see it through to fruition. So with that, we need to move on to some important people in the community. Mayor Rob Ware, would you please come forward and bring your welcome to the city, followed by Milton Slack, representing Jamie Doss for the City of Rome.
Thank you, Joyce. On behalf of the City of Cave Spring, it is truly an honor for me to be here to represent the community. I have to say that a lot of the folks that attended Fairview were friends of mine growing up and still are in the community there. So on a personal basis, it's very special to me. In addition, certainly the effort to recognize the significance of the Rosenwald schools, certainly to the Cave Spring area, is very important. And of course, I always encourage the kind of cultural and historic efforts that are being made to restore the school there, because that'll be another special place in Cave Spring that people can come visit. So again, we appreciate very much what's being done, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you. Now, you want me to read this?
Summarize. Let me get one of the alumni.
Well, what I'd like to do is, one of the alumni, please come up. Ms. Montgomery, it's a pleasure for me to present this proclamation that was passed by the City Council as recognizing the contributions of the school and its graduates there. So on behalf of Cave Spring, please accept this proclamation.
I accept it. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Milton Slack. I'm a commissioner and mayor pro tem of Rome. And I want to welcome everybody here. If it's your first time in Rome, we're looking forward to you coming back. If you lived here, left here, or came through, we want you to enjoy what's here, and just let us know that you enjoy the changes that have been made since you were here the last time. And you have a vision, and that's what we have to do. The future is in visions, and we have to work together to bring these visions to fruition. And you, like you say, people want to know what you want to do with a building that's covered with kudzu.
Correct.
Restore it.
Very well.
We want to restore it and keep history going, because history is made every day. Even right now, we're making history, and we need to let everybody know about our history. We live in the jewel of Northwest Georgia. And this is just another shining jewel that we're going to put there as a drawing magnet to bring people to this area, because we got a wealth of stuff here that people need to know about. So everybody from the city of Rome, thank you for coming tonight. Don't read it. But Buzz would make me read this because it got a lot of whereases. But anyway, this is a proclamation from the city of Rome. Okay, which one?
Miss Eva Joe. For those of you who have attended some of the mini bake sales, this is the lady that does the delicious red velvet cakes.
Hey! Miss Eva, how you doing? Good to see you again. This is a bunch of whereases from the city of Rome. But it's resolving the fact that we are having everybody in the city of Rome recognize today as Fairview Day.
Fairview it is, Brown Day.
And from the city of Rome. Thank you. Can I help you down?
And countrymen from near and far, from the great city of Atlantis to the great empire of Rome, we welcome you. My name is Nicholas Maximus. My friends call me Big Mike. I have a lovely lady to introduce, and her name is Lindia Minimus. And we refer to her as Little Linda. I wonder if my wife would stand up, sweetheart. I've been on loan to Joyce Purdue Smith for 9 months, and we've birthed a baby. Thank you. Now you can imagine going through those stages during those 9 months that in fact there were some differences of opinion about certain issues. One of those issues was the invitation and what would be written on the invitation. Lady Smith insisted on placing on the invitation black tie optional. I said, Lady Smith, nobody wants to be in a tuxedo. No, you don't know Rome. Well, let me tell you something. I'm Romish. I'm a little bit Rome, and I'm a lot of Jewish. Lady Smith, how many times did you say to me, Mike, you just don't know Rome. You're not a Roman. Well, guess what? Tonight, I'm a Roman. You know, what I wanted on the invitation was black toga optional. And you know, she just didn't buy it. Well, let me tell you something. If it looks like I was poured into this suit, there's a reason. Because underneath the suit, I have 36 yards of black toga material. And it was okay. I was able to zip everything and get everything on, but I had to use the facilities. And that presented somewhat of a problem. I was looking for the end of the fabric. And let me tell you how binding it is. It's very uncomfortable. So Joyce, maybe in retrospect, black togas wouldn't have been appropriate. Now that silly stuff is over, I have such an amazing opportunity. And I mean this. We have with us a legend. Actually, there are a lot of legendary people in this room, and I know that. But we have one particular person who is really famous, as am I. I don't know how many times Lionel Richie has been stopped and asked, are you related to Mike Weinroth? And of course, the same thing has happened to me. But on a very serious note, Monica Pearson is just a lovely lady. And we were dreaming 9 months ago of who could we have that would draw an audience. And we talked about so many different people, but Monica's name kept coming back. And I said, Lady Smith, do you not know how long it takes to try to break through their press people and their manipulators and all of that? And she said, well, we can try. And I said, okay. So as it turned out, I happened to know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who could possibly make a call to Monica Pearson. And the next thing I knew, was in contact with Monica Pearson. What she doesn't know is that one of the silent auction items is her cell phone number in an envelope. Now, you know, the amazing thing is that I feel so close to Monica because we're just tight. We're just good friends. The last time I called her, which was just about 10 days ago, I said, Monica, how are you? And she said, who is this? And I said, it's Mike Weinroth. Why did you call? Oh, well, I was wondering what you were going to wear on Saturday night. Well, I don't know yet. I said, oh, okay. And then I realized I was calling because I wanted to be sure she got an invitation. It was a little late in calling, but you know, it never hurts to follow up on things. And of course, Monica was lovely. She is everybody's favorite newscaster, of course. Now, she was the one who said, you know, Mike, I'm telling you, we're very tight. You know, Mike, she said, if you'll put the bios in the program, we can really slow up the whole process of bringing people to the stage because, you know, we can just sort of, I said, okay, that's a great idea. And Monica's bio is in the program book, but I just felt like not only do I want to introduce her, I want to tell her how much she means to everyone in this room. She is a legend. I received a bio that was about 37 pages on Monica, and I was asked to hone it down a little. So I came up with one page, and the first statement is just so true. It just came off the top of my head. I guess because I'm a journalism major too, Monica. In the world of TV reporting, Monica Kaufman is a superstar. She has set so many records. She has won so many Emmys. She has had so many legendary interviews with some of the most important people in this world. And we had her to ourselves in Atlanta, Georgia. Monica, I speak for so many people who have worked so hard on this event, and I am so grateful that you are here with us tonight. Please come forward. Our MC for the evening, Monica Pearson.
All I can say is Mike is a hot mess. But it is my pleasure to be here in Rome again and to be here with all of you tonight as we celebrate. Oh, we are so blessed to have so many very important people in this room, in the two rooms, the luminaries, those who really shine bright. And because you're here tonight, that tells me you're a history buff, a lover of history, and most of all, someone who wants to see that history continue. But I do have to say some special hellos to a few people. The first one is to State Attorney General Sam Olens and his lovely wife, Lisa. He is successfully off the campaign trail, smiling brightly, but needing a nap. We know that. Next, Robin Banks, author and great-granddaughter of Booker T. Washington. Robin, thank you for being with us. Stephanie Deutsch, author of You Need a Schoolhouse and the wife of David Deutsch, great-grandson of Julius Rosenwald. Mary Hofschwelle, author of The Rosenwald Schools of the American South. And I asked this next gentleman if he was in some way related to the soup company, but he assures me he is not. Dr. Ron Knorr, humanities scholar and assistant professor of education at Mercer University, and his lovely wife, Pamela. Mrs. Catherine B. Perdue, who we call the unsung hero of this entire project. She's a retired teacher from the Georgia School for the Deaf, the dedicated wife of Eugene Perdue Sr., faithful servant of the Cosmopolitan United Methodist Church, where the Fairview School began, and mother to many children besides her own. Ms. Catherine B. Perdue. Dr. Saul Wilson, longtime professor of veterinary science at Tuskegee University. A round of applause. Dr. Edith Powell, a retired professor after a 20-plus year career in health occupations and medical technology at Tuskegee University. And now those who know the project better than anybody else, those who went to Fairview, E.S. Brown. We're going to start off with the lady who kept everybody healthy and happy, Mary Lee Leaks, former cook at the Fairview School. And now we're going to hear from former student Ted Barnett, who has invited the Fairview Glee Club to join him for the presentation. A round of applause, please, for Ted Barnett and the Glee Club. church say? Amen. Thank you, Mr. Barnett and the Fairview Glee Club. That got us started right for tomorrow. And now it's my joy to introduce our speaker for tonight. There is a brief bio of our speaker in the program that gives you a look at his professional development. For 17 years, Dr. Jamil S. Zanaldan has been president of the Georgia Humanities Council. He is a true history buff with a love for history, public policy, and the humanities. He shared his love for all three as a teacher at Northwestern University and Case Western Reserve University. He spent 17 years on Capitol Hill in several positions, including, most importantly, president of the Federation of State Humanities Councils. And during that time, he also researched and authored 2 books. One of them studied low-income elderly people and public policy. He has placed his distinctive mark on the Georgia Humanities Council with a leadership role in the development of the new Georgia Encyclopedia. If you have not been online to see this, shame on you. This is one of the nation's first exclusively internet-based encyclopedias for the public. And I will say to you right now, Dr. Jamil, if it had not been for you, I would not have gotten my master's thesis finished. Now, many of you are going, what? What do you mean? Because I got my first tips on my subject, Jefferson Franklin Long, who was Georgia's first Black United States representative, elected in 1870 from the Encyclopedia Online. He was elected in 1870, served in 1871, was gone after about 46 days, but that's a whole nother story. Dr. Zanaldan knows the value of history from the past, and he knows the value of history as it is being made every day. Please welcome Dr. Jamil.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. I cannot begin to tell you how significant what is happening this evening is. And I say that not only about Floyd County and Cave Spring and Rome, but I want to say in Georgia and possibly in the American South. It's difficult to know how significant the Fairview Brown School is. It will take us time and the work of more historians to weigh the impact of what took place 10 miles from here. My colleague, who you'll be hearing from, I think, after me, Jeannie Syriac. Jeannie, where are you? Jeannie has been working with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the Department of Natural Resources here in Georgia, to document the Rosenwald School movement here in the state of Georgia. She's also a part of the effort to document the Rosenwald School movement throughout the South. The amazing thing is that if you ask just about anybody in the education field, if you ask many historians, what is a Rosenwald school, they draw a blank. It's amazing. We kind of have left the Rosenwald school movement behind in our rush into the 21st century, in the experience of the post-civil rights era, where we have left behind all of those things that got us there. We've let it go. It's a part of a past that we have now grown beyond. I think what was so beautiful about what we just heard was the praise of the ancestors. The memory. We're living in a society, and perhaps this is the way human beings are. I don't know. You tell me. But we forget so quickly. You know, we forget what other people went through to get us here, Do we know the price that was paid by our forefathers to be here tonight, to enjoy this occasion? Do we know? Do we understand? Why is it that we as human beings, as soon as we've made it across the river, we forgot what was on the other side? How do we do that? But we do it. That's the beauty of what we just heard. And particularly the closing remarks, which was taken from the Gettysburg Address, which was the moment that the Civil War became not a war over national union and secession, but at the Gettysburg Address in 1863, November 1863, it became a war for the destruction of the institution of slavery. What happened after that, we know. The 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed to the freed slaves equal rights, civil liberties, the right to vote, equality in the new United States. We know what happened. After approximately 1876, the end of Reconstruction, Southern society returned to other forms of slavery by another name, as it has been said, but Jim Crow. The dream left the Southland so quickly, and it wasn't just the South. I mean, as we know, the institution of racism, of inequality, was a national institution in the United States. That's the disgrace that our country has to live with. But what is remarkable is that in communities like Cave Spring, and in so many communities throughout Georgia and throughout the South, people found ways of becoming dignified. They discovered their own humanity without the aid of the law, which the state was not giving African Americans the support of. They made their own dignity. Through the efforts of two great Americans that I hope we learn again more about, Booker T. Washington, one of the great Americans in our history, certainly one of the great educators, and Julius Rosenwald, the president of the Sears and Roebuck Fund and a Jewish philanthropist whose friendship with Booker Washington launched a significant education reform movement that touched every state in the South that we're still, thanks to the good work of scholars, still trying to get our arms around. We're still not quite clear what happened. But let me give you just a hint of what took place in the decade of the 1920s up until the early 1930s with the creation of these Rosenwald schools. And let me suggest what might have happened as a result. What Julius Rosenwald and Booker Washington proposed was a partnership in rural communities between African Americans and their educational authorities in that community for the construction of schools for black people. Through a rigorous process that took place through the late teens and into the early 1920s, the Rosenwald Fund, as it became known, developed the blueprints for the creation of first-rate school structures in which kids would be taught by good, excellent teachers. But what was magic about this? It was essentially a private initiative that for a grant from the Rosenwald Fund that had to be matched by the community, they could build a school for themselves. Of course, there was always the possibility that there would already be a school because there was a mandate that the state provide public education for black people. But everyone knew that whatever the state in Georgia or anywhere else in the South was going to provide, what kind of school, it was going to be woefully inadequate, and certainly in the rural areas. 245 schools, is that correct, Jeannie? Rosenwald schools in Georgia. 245 Rosenwald schools were built in rural communities throughout the South. 5,000 schools were built throughout the Confederate States, what would have been the old Confederacy. 5,000 schools. Historians are beginning now to look at this phenomenon, essentially the creation of a unique school system inside state government. And what is so amazing about these schools, to me and to those of us that I have been learning from, what is so amazing was the emphasis on the education in these schools took up the spirit of Booker T. Washington. Now, some people might say, uplift. No, we're not interested in uplift. We're interested in the advocacy of civil rights and equality. Uplift is Uncle Tom. Booker T. Washington caught a lot of flack from people like W.E.B. Du Bois for essentially seeking education as a route of change and not direct advocacy. But one of the things that I think the Rosenwald School knew and understood is that before the day of full equality could come, there had to be the day that said, we deserve it because of who we are and because of what we believe about ourselves. I think that the sacrifice of the adults in these communities to build these schools with their hands, their labor, their supplies, their blood money, that product was the delivery of a gift to the children of that community that cannot have a dollar sign next to it. And the quality of the education that took place in those little schools was not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic. We know that, right? It was about picking yourself up. It was about you are a human being. You deserve respect. But not just that, act in a manner that wins you respect. So, in conclusion, we cannot forget what happened here. We can't. If we value what happened in the 1960s in the South, if we value the sacrifices that so many children of the parents who came of age in the Rosenwald schools, if we value those sacrifices, then we've got to remember the names of those who taught these kids, who built these schools, who opened those doors, and who demanded of the children the best character that they had. I want to finish on this note. One of the things that I've learned from Joyce is that the motto, and these schools had mottos, okay? Good, better, best. The motto was itself the embodiment of what education meant. It was not just book learning, it was education of the whole self. Good, better, best, I will not stop till my good is better and my better is best. Every child, am I correct, Joyce? Every day understood that's why you're here. That's why you're here. Now, I want to tell you, and this is in my conclusion, that that's not a bad motto for all of us and the children that we are raising today. What's happened? God bless every educator. God bless all of you involved in education, in schools and in colleges and universities. You are our future. If we've got one, you're it. But somewhere in the course of education, we forgot about the part of character. That you can be brilliant, but what do you do with your brilliance? Who and what do you serve? right? That's what Fairview Brown taught those children, is who they are and what they serve. 4 things come to mind when I think of Fairview Brown. And they also come to mind when I think of Booker T. Washington, and when I think of the beauty of that man, Julius Rosenwald, that just knocks me out. There are 4 things that come to mind, and I think these were what got us through the Great Depression. This country was a mess, but we got through it. Got us through World War II, and it was what fed the kids who became the adults that led the modern civil rights movement in the South against tremendous odds. I think there are these things, 4 things, and I attribute these in part to the work of the Rosenwald schools. Give, give, give. Be a giver. That was the message of the adults to the children. That was the message that the children picked up from the adults, because the adults were doing the giving by creating the school, by being there for those children, by making sure those kids somehow had a way to get to the school building and had a safe way of getting home. Give, number 1. Number 2, learn, learn, learn. You're there to build your mind. You're there to build your mind. You can demand respect, but prove to me that you deserve respect. Develop your brain. Develop your good sense. Develop your skills. Learn. 3, rise up. When you believe in yourself, when you know what you're talking about, when you know why you believe what you believe, when you have some understanding of what is good and what you're willing to devote your life to, you can rise up. And you know what? People can take it away from you. For African Americans in the South, just about everything was taken away from you, but not your dignity. That you could hold on to. That's a little bit of what our Rosenwald schools gave to the people of the South. Rise up. And then finally, serve. That seems to me to be the most important thing as I look at the Rosenwald schools and as I'm trying to understand what is this phenomenon in American history? How do I get my arms around this? I'm a newbie. I'm learning from Jeannie Syriac here, and I'm learning from Mary Hoshwell, and I'm learning from Stephanie Deutsch. I'm a newbie in this. But I think one of the things that is so powerful about the Rosenwald schools is this self-sacrifice. You know, nobody complained. I'm giving too much of my time. This is costing me too much. You know, I'm busy. You know, nobody complained. People showed up and did the job. They served. It wasn't about them. It was about us. It was about us. And I think that service, that emphasis on serve, made them servants. We know how that connects with our own faith traditions. We had a beautiful example of that just a few minutes ago. This is so powerful. This is so special. This is such an important part of American history that to let this go, we may be letting go one of the richest episodes in the history of this nation. So I hope that as we gather out eventually tonight, and as we think back about what Joyce is trying to accomplish here with all of her colleagues, that we not forget this is not just about a school in Cave Spring. This is about everything. This is also, we've learned in the course of this conference, this is about Berry College. Berry College has so many of the same ethics of service, of support, of uplift, of caring for mountain kids, which of course is, you know, at the heart of its existence. And in fact, one of the things that we have learned at this conference is that there was a fair amount of discourse between Martha Berry and the faculty and the students at Berry College, and between the Rosenwald schools and at Cave Spring. We didn't know that. I mean, we're learning lots of things in the conference that just happened here. You know what? They're both on the same wavelength. They're both here at Cave Spring and Rome. Think about that. Think about the gold you have right here in the stories of Berry College and the Fairview Brown School. Part of a significant American movement right here in Floyd County. I want to end on this note. I know I said I was going to be ending, but I want to end on this note. we're not only teaching the young, we're teaching ourselves as we pursue this project. All of us can use a little uplift, right? All of us could. We need to look around, I think, in Floyd County at all of the other little pots of human gold. And as I've become acquainted with this place, I see lots of pots of gold. I see lots of messages to the future that we have to keep alive and absorb and teach our children about. Certainly Berry College is one, and the Fairview E.S. Brown School is one. But I think also we have the School for the Deaf in Cave Spring. You know, when the School for the Deaf was created in Cave Spring, it was only the 11th in the entire United States as a residential institution for the deaf. And it was a product of Baptist philanthropy in Cave Spring. That is significant all by itself. Add to that the Cherokee Nation, the creation of their Constitution, of their Senate and their House of Representatives, their own Bill of Rights, their self-government. I would argue that the Cherokee Nation and Constitution, we're talking, of course, before the Trail of Tears, that the Cherokee Nation and Constitution, of which Floyd County is a part, is the first exportation of the idea of democracy in the United States to a foreign nation, which, of course, the Cherokee was. It was a foreign nation in the eyes of the U.S. Supreme Court. That's a very significant thing to happen in our American history, right here on this ground. You had the creation of a brand new democratic institution. Of course, the other side of that is we sent them away. Hey, life is light and dark. We have to face both parts of those, don't we? Don't we have to own up to our responsibility for the bad too? Isn't that a part of what it means to have our eyes open and to be teaching ourselves the lessons of the past? But I think that's a very important thing for us to keep in mind, is the magnificence for a time of the Cherokee Nation here in North Georgia, and also the disaster that happened afterwards. And we can go on. I mean, we have the Etowah Mounds here, right? Think about that. There were thriving, supposedly, when the white man came over here to discover America, it was empty. Well, not quite. The Etowah Mounds tell us that there were thousands of woodland Indians living here in communities, in little cities, quite commercially viable, long before we got here. But you have the Etowah Mounds here, which is a reminder that life extends back a long time on the real estate that we're occupying. We need to remember that as well. So in short, please adopt this movement that is beginning in Cave Spring. Embrace it. Understand that it is a part of the story that we want to tell others in the county, others in the state of Georgia, and others in the South. And this is one time that doing good just might pay off. Thank you very much.
I loved everything you said. When are you going to be lecturing again? When you talk about the pots of gold here, it means some of our students, Dr. Noor, we've got some people who could be doing something on their masters and their PhDs, unearthed some of this gold. But don't worry, I'm not doing it. Too old to work on my PhD. Thank you again. We will keep in mind, give, learn, rise up, and serve. It's not only from our history, but it's for our present and also for our future. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Ms. Jeannie Syriac. She's the African Americans Programs Coordinator for the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, and she will address the Rosenwald initiatives.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Syriac, and I'm a preservationist. About 13 years ago. Thank you. I became interested in Rosenwald schools. And I went up to this part of Georgia to see a lady named Susie Wheeler. And she became my guru on how I was going to find what happened to Georgia's Rosenwald schools. I know some people know about Susie Wheeler, but let me just tell you a little bit about her. She went to a Rosenwald school in 1923. It was called Noble Hill. It's up in Cassville near Cartersville. She was in the first class in 1923. She later graduated from that Rosenwald school. She went on to great things educationally. She received her degrees at Fort Valley State University, Atlanta University, and then she came back to Bartow County. And she became what was called a Jeans supervisor. Anna T. Jeans was a philanthropist like Julius Rosenwald. She believed that she wanted to leave her estates to furthering teachers who came back to communities, and Susie Wheeler became one of these people. And the Jeans supervisors, they would go around Bartow County and all the counties of Georgia, and they would work with all of the Rosenwald schools, the county officials, and they essentially would be the marketing people to get things into these schools, to get them better textbooks. So Dr. Wheeler and I would visit a lot about how I was going to do this project. And one of the things she told me was, she said, Jeannie, she said, I know you know preservation. She said, but to find these schools, you're going to have to find living people who went to these schools to get the real story. So began my trek. It was about 13 years ago. And about a year or two into it, I received an invitation from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They said, Jeannie, we've heard about what you've been doing in Georgia, and we'd like you to come to this meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina, and meet other people in the 15 states who had Rosenwald schools. And I became the kind of representative for Georgia, if you will. So I went to the meeting. Oh, this is great. I'll meet a lot of people and they'll teach me the way. When I went to that meeting, I knew about 3 Rosenwald schools in the state of Georgia. Today, I know about 52 buildings that are still standing. And I've uncovered a lot of stories along the way, but I needed help. And so the initiative of the Rosenwald schools was formed by the National Trust to join together preservationists, scholars, historians, and we all have this common goal of wanting to tell this wonderful American story in education. I then went to Fisk University, and Mary Hofschwelle, who's one of our scholars, she was doing research for her great book, The Rosenwald Schools of the American South. She said, Jeannie, I'll show you around the Fisk archives and where you can find the Georgia boxes. So I said, oh, okay. I didn't know they didn't have an app for this. So I went up to Fisk, and Mary showed me where the Georgia boxes were, and I spent a couple of days up there. And I finally found the list of Georgia's 242 schools and about 15 shops and teachers' homes, so 259 structures. Guess what it said? It said there was a school in Cave Spring. It was a 3-teacher school. It cost this much money. That was it, folks. That was it for all of the counties, including Noble Hill. And so I began to take this data around with me everywhere. And if I had to go to speak at a church, I'd ask people, do you know anything about a school that used to be in this area? And sure enough, as time went on, I found those alumni. And we are now telling this story in Georgia and saving buildings. But that's only part of the story. We also needed to do what Fairview is doing right now. We needed to save these buildings, which have now become 75 or 80 years old. How do we go about that? Well, through our initiative, we began to bring greater awareness to this American story. First, the National Trust listed Rosenwald schools as one of its 11 most endangered properties in the nation. That happened about 10 years ago. Then a few years later, we had our first conference on Rosenwald schools at Fisk University. Other benefits came out of that. Many researchers like myself had gone to Fisk for years. The records were getting very damaged. The photographs were frayed. So with the National Trust's help, we were able to garner support from Cracker Barrel to digitize those records. The photographs that are available at Fisk are now available to the world via the internet. You can go on the rosenwaldschools.com website, and you can see if your county had a school, and we didn't have that 10 years ago. So now there is kind of an app for it. The next thing we did was we began to engage members of the Rosenwald family, and many of them are now part of the initiative. Glad that you're here, Stephanie, tonight. Let me tell you about a few of the other Rosenwalds. Peter Askley, who lives in Chicago, he's Julius Rosenwald's great-grandson. Grandson. Peter decided no one has ever written a biography about this man. So he took that on, and now there is a biography about Julius Rosenwald. Mary Hofschwelly, she did a comprehensive study of all of these schools, all 5,000 of them. And now there's a comprehensive book for researchers to look at. Stephanie, you took on the task of looking at these two men and what giants they were. And it's just been such an inspiration to work with all of these people. And when we have these conferences, not only do that group of people come, but the alumni come. So as a 100th year anniversary of the meeting of these men was approaching, the National Trust said, we're gonna have a conference to celebrate this 100-year anniversary. So in 2012, about 300 people went to Tuskegee University, and we had a Rosenwald conference. It was so uplifting. If anybody's ever been to a political convention, you know how they had the signs with your states? And when we had the plenary sessions, everybody would sit in their state section. And all 15 states of Rosenwald schools were there. Students were there. Scholars were there. And you know what? It was such a good thing that when I finally got the podium, I had to follow Nikki Giovanni. What a challenge. But I did challenge the president of the National Trust that day. I said, we really have enjoyed this, President Meeks, and we want another conference. So guess what? We're going to have another one in 2015 in Durham, North Carolina. To show you how Georgia fits into this equation, North Carolina had the most Rosenwald schools. They had almost 800 Rosenwald schools. So Georgia, I would always, when I go to talk about Georgia, I just say, we didn't have the most Rosenwald schools, but we had the last one. Do you all know that? We have the last Rosenwald School in Georgia. It's in Warm Springs. And that was a wonderful story. The fund had closed in 1932, and a young man named FDR had promised the community in Warm Springs he would get them a Rosenwald schools. So as most politicians do, right, Mr. Olens? After he became president, he called Samuel Smith, and he said, well, we want our Rosenwald school. And I can imagine what he said. Oh, well, our fund is closed. How are we going to do this? So Mr. FDR contributed some of his own money to make sure that school in Warm Springs got built. So every time I go and talk to my North Carolina colleagues, I said, well, we still got the last one. I'd like to kind of end with how I got involved with Fairview Brown. I've been studying these schools, like I said, for about 13 years. And one day, Joyce Smith called my office. And she said, Jeannie, she said, I'm planning a heritage weekend in Cave Spring, and we want to recognize my father. I said, who was your dad? His name was Eugene Perdue. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. I said, so what did he do in Cave Spring? She said, he taught at a school. And I said, what years did he teach at this school? She said, oh, in the 50s. I said, was the name of this school E.S. Brown? And she was so surprised. She said, you know something about E.S. Brown? I said, oh, yeah. I said, Georgia, they built a lot of schools in the 50s because they knew integration was coming. And we call those schools equalization schools because they were intended to kind of level the playing field. They were also intended to fight integration. Georgia did this in a big way to the tune of 500 schools, double the amount of the Rosenwald schools. So Joyce and I began to talk a little bit about that. And so she said, well, how did you get into looking at these schools? I said, well, because I was a student of Rosenwald schools, and these were the schools that preceded them. She said, oh, we have one. I said, you have a Rosenwald school in Cave Spring? When can I come up there? So it was about a month later, Joyce called me, and it was a cold February day when I first came to Cave Spring to look at this school building. And that day, I believe it was, I know it was Ted, and Eddie, were you with him that day? Anyhow, imagine this scene. We get there, it's a cold day, and the school is covered in kudzu. Chickens are running around the top of the mountain. And Joyce is just in amazement that me and my graduate assistant, oh, we want to get inside this school. So Ted goes and get a machete, and he and Eddie cut us a path. You remember that day? Yes, into the school building. And she was so excited that I was excited. And I'm still excited 4 years later. And I hope that all of you will be in trying to save the Fairview School. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Humanities Council, we'd like to make our first contribution to the restoration of the Fairview School. And I'm sure as the other speakers speak tonight, you all will be pulling out those checkbooks. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, please welcome landscape architect Wes Riles. He'll take a look at the past and a re-envisioning for the future of the Rosenwald School in Cave Springs.
Well, good evening. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. If I could get this thing to work. Maybe. There we go. Okay. It's my pleasure to be here with you tonight. As was mentioned, I'm the lead landscape architect for the project. And to plan and shape something like this, it really takes many hands. It takes a team. And I really need to recognize my other colleagues who were unable to be here tonight. The first is architect Joe Smith and Andrew Core, who is a specialist in historic preservation and cultural landscapes. Is this gonna, There we go. Okay, great. I was hoping you wouldn't have to stare at me all night. For those of you who have not been there, the Fairview campus is located on Padlock Mountain, directly across the street from the old School of the Deaf. That tiny blue dot, if I could, you can see the blue dot there on the screen, that's the school. It's located about 17 miles from here. The Fairview campus was once the cornerstone of the African American education in the county. Augmenting the basic curriculum, the school offered a well-rounded education in home economics, agriculture, and recreational opportunities. The first building was constructed in 1924, and over the course of 30 years, the campus grew to include 4 buildings. Unfortunately, all but one is lost, and that's what makes this so important. As far as the existing conditions, whether by sheer luck or divine intervention, the remaining building has survived in spite of over 50 years of neglect. However, with exposure to the elements, it's taken a heavy toll, and immediate repairs are needed to safeguard this precious landmark for future generations. As far as the repairs go, the project will be executed in phases, but of utmost importance are repairs to the walls, roof, framing, and foundation, which will help stabilize the structure and protect it from future deterioration. And great care is also being taken to preserve the character of the building by using historically appropriate materials. And these are just some views of what that would look like once it's restored. Subsequent phases will focus on the surrounding campus, and we not only want to honor the past, but lay a firm foundation for the future by continuing the legacy of educational excellence set forth by past generations. And as such, the restored first grade building will serve as a primary interpretive center for the re-envisioned campus. This will make Fairview's new living campus the first of its kind in Georgia, interpreting African American educational experiences of the 20th century. And while the original Rosenwald building has unfortunately been lost, the structure site will be interpreted as a community garden, utilizing the original building footprint and layout. Popular garden themes are under consideration, tapping into growing farm-to-table movements and local food initiatives. Camp offerings will also target Common Core Georgia Performance Standards, including STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. And this is a view of what that could possibly look like. Also featured prominently in the preservation plan will be the Mayfield Cottage at the base of the hill. And let me close with this. Without the direction and determination of Joyce Smith, we would not be here tonight. However, there is still work to be done, and I challenge you to look beyond the restoration of Fairview as an opportunity to not only preserve an important part of our past, but also an opportunity to impact future generations to continue in the spirit of educational excellence that has been set forth. An excellence that can be further exhibited through other important assets, these pots of gold that have been talked about in the Cave Spring community, such as Hearn Academy and the former School of the Deaf. And I challenge everyone here to look for ways to come together to bring greater interest to your community. A collaborative approach provides a greater chance of funding, and furthermore, the significance of each site is enhanced by its association with others. So thank you.
I'm one of those people who loves plants native to Georgia and finding those gorgeous wild Georgia azaleas. Oh, they're just gorgeous. Thank you very much, Mr. Riles. And now it's time to introduce Elliot Sams, Fairview alum, and Brent Leggs, Senior Field Officer from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Each of you has within your program an envelope. And now it's time for you to know why that envelope is there. Please, Mr. Sams and Mr. Leggs.
Good evening, everyone. As a graduate student at the University of Kentucky, I had the great fortune to inventory historic Rosenwald schools in the state of Kentucky. They were constructed between 1917 and 1932. During this process, I learned that my mother and father attended Rosenwald schools, which I didn't know. And as you can imagine, I was inspired by the fact that I could have this multi-sensory experience with those places, that I could feel touch. I could hear the floors creak when I walked inside of a school. And I realized the true power of historic preservation. And I actually remember the day that I knew that I would dedicate my life to the preservation of African American historic places. I want to share with you my connection to Joyce. In 2005, the National Trust and the Boston Field Office, we developed the Northeast African American Historic Places Outreach Program. And the goal of that was to empower, support, and encourage people that are working to preserve places of importance in African American history. Now, of course, to do that, we needed to build the capacity of nonprofits that are working to save these places. As you all know, most of the real effort and momentum behind a preservation project is really at the grassroots level. It's driven by committed volunteers and individuals that are dedicated to this long and difficult journey to preserve history. And they are truly altruistic. It's the unselfish concern and welfare for not only the history that they save, but to help and empower their community. So Joyce participated in our board building workshop. We had 81 nonprofit organizations participate in this, from Portland, Maine, the Abyssinian Meeting House, to the John Coltrane House, to Ackworth, Georgia, including 21 Rosenwald schools. Now, for me, again, my career and professional life is really dedicated to this work, and to come here tonight and be with all of you all and to see this elegant event with so many influential individuals that are connected to the past through the relationships of their family. to have the mayor here, Attorney General, to have you as the keynote speaker, to be with Jeannie, the landscape architect, the alumni. This is just remarkable. I hope that you know, looking at this from a national lens, I see this as a real model for preservation. I want to go back and I want to tell everyone within that network, those 81 organizations that have participated in the Northeast program, about tonight. I also want to be able to tell them about the commitment and collaboration of all of the citizens in here, of how you have given to support the preservation of this project. Now, we know the next step and most important step is to complete the master preservation plan. That's essential to advance a project and to do it in a professional manner, and they still need to raise the money to do that. So who's going to raise their hand to pay for that? Well, I'm going to give $50. Now, I know I look like, in my suit, let me stand over here, that I look like I probably have a lot of money. I don't. This is H&M. I work for a national nonprofit, so I'm not rich yet. But I just want to make a small contribution. But I know that there are others in this room that can do 10 times that. I know that there are others in this room that can do 100 times my contribution because you have the financial capacity to be able to do it. So preservation is a shared responsibility. It doesn't just take a committed individual or one person, it takes a community. And that's how we save places and that's how we save history. So let's tonight walk out of here having raised enough money to implement this master preservation plan as a first step. As we all know, the big project is $250,000. In the scheme of things, in the projects that I've seen and I work on, that's small change. I'm project manager for Madam C.J. Walker's estate. We're trying to identify a buyer for it. It ranges between $5 to $7 million. Hinchliffe Stadium, the only National Historic Landmark in baseball, a Negro League Park in Patterson, New Jersey, $24 million. But I also want to go back to the network that you participated in and to be able to say that you beat the #1 group in that network, which is the John Coltrane Home. So they started out as similar to Fairview, as an emerging organization. Last year, they had their very first fundraising event, and they raised $35,000. A major accomplishment in a short period of time. Now, uncertain if we'll raise that tonight, but hopefully in the next few months, that Joyce will be able to call and say that people here have committed significantly to help advance this project. So I ask in reference to your words, Jamil, give, give, give to preserve this important landmark in American history. Thank you.
And he's not Elliot, I'm Elliot, that cup of gold. I know you are sleepy and full tonight. I won't be long, so you can go home. I ain't gonna do no more because I'm gonna ask you for a donation if I sing, preach, and pray. But everyone has already asked you for that. So I am just reinforcing it with a little poem that I learned several years ago at Fairview Elementary School. And when I finish with that, I will take my seat. Somebody ought to say hallelujah. We had to learn in elementary school that Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All of the king horses and all the king men could not put Humpty Dumpty together again. The same we see with Fairview School. But with the money that you give tonight, we will be able to do what we need to do. God bless you.
Now, the envelopes are on your tables in your program, so if you would like to make your contribution or pledge tonight, please be sure to do that. Otherwise, take it home, talk about it, think about it, and write a check. This has been a wonderful evening, and we would like to recognize our champion-level donors. We'll ask them to please stand because they really made this evening possible. Berry College. Ira and Libby Levy. The Rome Area Heritage Foundation. And to those two unnamed anonymous donors, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. And now welcome back to the stage the Energizer Bunny for this project, Joyce Purdue Smith.
Well, what a night. What a night. And I guess all good things have to come to an end, right? All good things have to come to an end. For a lack of accidentally missing someone very special. You know, I have a way of reaching out to people. Julie, who is our grant writer, told me, Joyce, you have this way of just asking people to do things. How do you get people to do things that they don't really want to do? But whatever the case, we appreciate everyone who has helped us over the last 5 years to bring this project together. There have been just so many people who have stepped out, given unselfishly, and just been so kind, and we appreciate everything that you've done for us. In addition to that, I have to thank all of the committees that helped to pull this project together. I won't call out names because I will miss someone, but you know who you are, and of course, Lord Anthony knows who he is. Mike, please stand first, and the rest of it, Bernice, Mary Alice, all of you volunteers, all of the volunteers, Denise, Peggy, so with that in mind, I have 2 more housekeeping items to share with you. Number 1, those of you riding the trolley, it will be out on 5th Avenue, and you're free to catch the trolley from there. Number 2, if you have a silent auction item, the ladies have everything packed up, and the winners, you may go back to see which items you were able to win, settle up, and then be on your way. And we thank you for participating and supporting the silent auction. So I say to you tonight, and to our luminaries, as Mike terms you, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making this very first gala a wonderful, wonderful experience for us, and we look forward to another time when we can come together and celebrate this rich history in Cave Spring. So I say, let us finish the work of Booker T. and Julius Rosenwald. And hopefully, 90 years from now, there will be another group of people looking forward to putting together another 90 years to put us at, 270 years of preserving the African-American experience in Cave Spring, Georgia. I thank you all for being with us tonight. You've been a wonderful group. You have just been just wonderful, just wonderful. We do have a few baskets scattered around the building. If any of you would like to leave your envelopes inside, please do so. Some of the men have them on the upper and the lower level. So tonight I say farewell, so long. We'll see you next year. Bye now, and thank you. Thank you.